Good evening. Before anything else, I want to start with gratitude. There are a lot of blessings in my life, and tonight I want to recognize a few. Thank you all for your commitment to the recent Charlie Kirk Candlelight Vigil. It meant so much to me personally and to our community. Thank you, Lisa Harmon, for inviting me here this evening, and thank you, each one of you, for being engaged citizens willing to invest your time, energy, and hearts into the future of our towns, our counties, our state, and our country. My name is Christian Peterson. Some of you know me already, but for those who don't, let me introduce myself briefly. I'm not a Florida native. I was actually born in Colorado, and I grew up moving around the country from coast to coast. Those travels have given me a deep love for America in all her beauty and contradictions. I'm a Christian by faith and by name. I'm also a husband to my lovely wife, Jessica, and the father of two amazing little boys, Matthias and Philip. Locally, I am best known as a reporter for Riverbend News, and more recently as the organizer of the Charlie Kirk Vigil. However, I will be the first to say that while I helped start the process, the credit belongs to the many hands and hearts that came together to make it possible. But what ties all of these pieces of my life together, my family, my faith, my work, and this community, is a simple conviction that we are at our best when we face the truth, the reality of the world around us, and prepare for combat with knowledge and courage in tow, and Christ leading the way. Tonight, I want to share with you a lot of different things, but I think the most important thing to a group like this would be how to motivate the generation that is shaping our future, Gen Z. Let's start by understanding who Gen Z really is and what makes them different. Gen Z, or Zoomers, as I will refer to them from here on out, get a lot of media attention, and it seems everyone is talking about them all the time. The reason for that is that we are finally coming into our own as adults and as a political force, and it is rapidly changing the political landscape. Zoomers are what I like to call the technology and terror generation. I was born in 2002. I don't know what life was like before the towers fell. I don't know what life was like before the internet. I don't know what life was like before airplane security or progressive foreign entanglements or a prevailing progressive or liberal administration. I don't know what it was like to not have a cell phone, to not have the internet, and I would be willing to bet that 90% of the rest of my generation is the exact same way. But aside from the technology front, and intrinsically connected to it, I don't know what life without terror is like. I've heard that 9/11 was surprising, astonishing, eye-opening for those who were there and saw it either in person or over TV. However, that is just normal to me. Now, that's not a good thing, but it's true. It's normal to all of us. A school is shot up, a church is burned down, a government official attacked, a prominent political figure assassinated, death, destruction, despair, it surrounds us. And thanks to the internet, we are always aware of it. Now, don't think of this as naivete. I know there were horrible things going on for all of human history. The difference is they weren't immediately available at your fingertips. I am positive that within 10 minutes on my phone, I could quickly find a horrid video of someone being killed, or an entire neighborhood being bombed, or a small town church being burned to the ground. I say all of this not to discourage you, not to make you worry or upset you. I say all this because you need to understand the Zoomers coming into the political realm. They only know violence, anger, aggressive rhetoric, danger, propaganda, and liberalism. So previous strategies of inspiration and motivation are not as effective with them. You can't scare Zoomers into being more involved. They're already terrified. You can't make them despair about the housing crisis or other things like that because the propaganda has gotten a hold of them. And we'll get back to that in a moment. You cannot motivate them in the same way people used to be motivated. Understanding this context is key, because to truly reach Zoomers, we need to recognize not just the technology and terror they've grown up with, but also how their worldview has been shaped by the ideas they've absorbed and the stark differences between young men and women in politics today. NBC News, I know, gross, recently partnered with SurveyMonkey to do a poll of Zoomer men and women, and the results were shocking. The polled respondents from ages 18 to 29 had different views on a lot of things. When the polling is broken down by voting statistics, things become very interesting. Men who voted for Trump said having children was the #1 way they would define personal success. Women who voted for Trump said achieving financial independence was their top definition. Both men and women who voted for Harris said having a job or career you find fulfilling is their top definition. Being married doesn't show up on the list for men who voted for Trump until #4. For women who voted for Trump, having children doesn't show up until 6. And even farther beneath that, at #9, is being married. The exact same spot as men who voted for Harris. Men who voted for Harris, again, ranked being married lower than having children at 10th place. And then the most damning and concerning, in my opinion, women who voted for Harris said being married is their 11th option and having children is 12th. There were 13 options to choose from, and every single polled group, aside from men who voted for Trump, put children, aka the future, and marriage underneath their top 5. These results aren't just numbers, they're a warning. When children and marriage fall beneath career and self-fulfillment in your hierarchy of success, something has gone fundamentally wrong. Our founders would be disgusted. History would be disgusted. The nuclear family is the foundation of human life, and a society that devalues it is a society at risk. But you see the problem. These people are lost. They don't understand. They have fallen victim to a world teaching them half-truths. That a career is more important than your family. That your wealth is more important than truth. That liberty is not worth death. They are uneducated, lost, and propagandized to a degree I think rarely happens in human history. There are thousands of Americans in our country that believe in communism, one of the worst and arguably most murderous forms of government ever created. I've been working my way through Hillsdale College's online courses. They are free and incredibly interesting. It is probably one of the last good colleges in the United States, maybe even the world. It wasn't until much later, as I worked through these, that I found out that Charlie Kirk did them as well. That was an uplifting discovery. When I was asked to come and speak tonight, I was told to discuss the vigil, to discuss Charlie Kirk. I thought a lot about what to say about him. I don't want to be an echo chamber and repeat the same things you've heard about him a million times, even if they're true. I want to talk about Charlie Kirk's 2 top priorities. And if you doubt these were his top priorities, then you need to go back and listen. Charlie Kirk cared about Zoomers and families. In fact, Erica Kirk, when discussing her husband after his death, said that if he were to have run for political office, his #1 priority would have been restoring the nuclear family. In both politics and Christianity, the family is the root example of both. It is the root example of God's love for us and the original political structure. That means something. Now, I've thrown a lot at you. Numbers, viewpoints, a lot of it is depressing. And when I first started thinking about this, as a young man and over the past few years, I was depressed about it. Once I had my sons, I wanted to run and hide forever. I wanted to take my little family, run far away into some mountainous area, and live out the rest of my days happily ignoring the world around me. That is unfortunately, I believe, how most of my generation feels. Hopeless. The chances of most of us owning land and a home are impossibly low. The chances of economic success are impossibly low. The political elite, and by that I mean most of Hollywood, our current political sphere, mainstream media, and especially our collegiate peers, they are focused on one thing, and that is maintaining their own power and their own sphere of control. This means putting everyone else down and pushing everything else away as long as they feel good and look good. So back to the thesis of my speech. How do you inspire Zoomers? How do you get them out to the polls? How do you get them to care not just about the presidential election, but the election here at home? The first step is education. This is twofold, really. Zoomers are propagandized. Fight back with truth. Never, ever be ashamed of educating someone of the truth. Zoomers need it most. They are lost. They are so lost they don't even realize they are lost. They need to be shown. We've all seen the videos of people being interviewed on the street, and they can't answer simple questions like, what's the capital of California? That is a person who is so lost they don't realize it. So combat propaganda with education. And I mean everywhere that Zoomers go. TikTok, Twitter, YouTube, school, home. Surround them with truth. Yes, even and especially in the schools. You have to be willing to fight for change. Their literal education is incorrect. The first step is to confront the falsehood with truth. The second step is combating hopelessness. Zoomers are lonely. That is a statistical fact. They feel as if the world has nothing to offer them. Life appears too difficult, so to many of those who hear the truth, running away is all they can think they can do. That is why we combat the hopelessness with the obvious: hope. There is so much to be hopeful for in our world, and so much to enjoy. Zoomers view marriage and children as a burden, as archaic. They need to be reminded of the hope of the future that children so perfectly embody. Marriage is wonderful because it teaches you to love someone even when sometimes you think they are your enemy. The Creator has declared that there is a natural law. The founders were correct when they said that. There are inalienable rights, and those rights can always be brought back into the fold, and they will always reassert themselves. There is so much hope for the future. That is not a message that has reached Zoomers, so they crave it. And when we offer it to them, true hope, true community, it quickly brings them into the fold. The third step is grace. Now, I am a Christian. I was raised that way. I believe it with my entire being. I believe that we have an incredibly patient God who constantly shows us grace every day for His glory and as a way of teaching us how to treat each other. Zoomers are lost people. They need their worldview broken through, yes, and sometimes that really hurts. Zoomers are hopeless, so yes, they do sometimes need to be pointed towards the hopeful. But don't all these things make you pity them? When a Zoomer understands the truth, he can often be met with jeering or disdain, and it's coming from both sides sometimes. And he begins to feel hopeless. And when he begins to feel hopeless, he begins to believe the lie that he has been told his whole life, that nothing in the world is worth living for more than his own pleasure. That is why graciousness is key to changing the battle. Graciousness with our enemies and graciousness when they change. I'm a really young guy, I know. And I am speaking to people who are probably much wiser than me and can teach me a great many things. I think this is the one thing that I understand that would be of true help to you. We live in very dangerous times. There is no denying that. Our freedoms are trampled every day. We yearn for the freedom our founders attempted to bring about. We dream of a world without the administrative state, without endless regulations, where life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness are protected. That is why it's time for revolution. Not a violent one, not an army raised against a king, a different kind of revolution, one that refuses to back down on the truth, refuses to watch our rights be trampled upon, refuses to let the powers that be destroy the next generation and the country before our eyes. A revolution of words, of truth, shared, passed between family and friends, not in whispers, but in shouts. Set the example. Don't be ashamed of the truth. Stand up for it. When you reach out to a Zoomer and they mock you, respond firmly, but with grace. There is no shame to be had in the truth. It is the very thing that Charlie Kirk died for. The future is coming, and the future that I see is hopeful. We can get there. We can change the USA, even us here in Suwannee County. We can have a hand in that. Martin Treptow, a soldier during World War I, had written this in his diary before he died. Quote, "America must win this war. Therefore, I will work. I will save. I will sacrifice. I will endure. I will fight cheerfully and do my utmost as if the issue of the whole struggle depended on me alone." That is how we must view our current political climate. We are in a war, but it isn't over yet. And we still have a chance to make a generational change and find victory. Thank you.